Hi guys, my name is Gabby Tavi. I'm an illustrator and welcome back to my vlog. In today's vlog, I thought I would make it a bit more practical than normally, and rather than just talking you through my week, I'm gonna share tips on how to get yourself going, how to stay creative throughout your week. First of all, because I'm a full-time illustrator and I work 6 days a week, I have to keep myself consistently productive and creative. So I can't just count on creative inspiration to keep myself going. Well, inspiration is real, it does exist. Sometimes it just pops up in my head out of nowhere, but it's not something that my entire professional practice is predicated on. I basically have to work myself up to being creative and being inspired rather than wait for it to come to me. So I'm just gonna talk through how I go about it every day. So first of all, make sure your space is always ready for work. I'm trying to make sure that my workspace is tidy and neat and kept to like a minimal amount of stuff. So if I feel like overwhelmed and anxious, so I'm quite an anxious person myself, so I try to just tidy up my desk and see what is not important that is there, and just keep only things that I need every day and things that don't distract me from my everyday creative process. Sometimes I get really overwhelmed by like difficulties outside of my work, like financial difficulties, like family difficulties or something, or just, I don't know, personal like anxiety, like social anxiety and stuff that is just stressing me out and is sort of like suppressing my creative flow. So in that way I try just tidying up my space physically helps me out a lot. It's like a one step I make towards feeling more peaceful with myself. The same thing is with mental space. What helps me to that is just writing down everything that is bugging me, or like this creative block that is annoying me. I just write down what I suspect is the issue that is giving me anxiety or giving me this like creative block or whatever, and try to kind of, break it down into like small issues that I can do something about. I think, and just kind of writing it down and having it in front of yourself so you know like what's going on is helpful, because you don't feel like just helpless and kind of taken over by your emotions and by your anxiety or whatever. Oh, and another thing with mental space, if on that day you have something that might bug you throughout the day, like you need to make this call that you don't really want to make, or you want to just answer this email that is not a fun thing to do but it needs done, and just try to get rid of things that can be done quickly, just as soon as you can, like answer emails, make phone calls, and meet people early in the morning so you still have a whole day ahead. Also, the thing that helps me is when I get up early enough. If I get up like 6 o'clock and I work from home, so I don't need to make a trip to work, so it gives me enough time to like kind of set my pace gradually rather than just jumping out of bed and getting right into it. So once I get up early, I feel like I'm ahead of the world a bit, so I don't feel as much behind, because normally, if the first thing you do when you get up is looking at your social media, you're just gonna feel like super overwhelmed or super like behind. So try not to do that. To me, that's just like so overwhelming, because then I start comparing myself to everyone, and then there's gonna be a lot of people all the time who are further ahead than you, and that is just not helpful. I think it's more overwhelming than helpful to just wake up and look for inspiration at people who are actually like already smashing it from like 6 o'clock in the morning. I think that's healthier for a bit later in the day, when you're actually like getting on with your work, and when you're kind of ready to dive in. So so when you get up early, just make a plan for your day, come up with like 2 main goals that you're going to concentrate on today. Like, for example, my today's goal was to concentrate on a video and concentrate on my Holocene illustration. So illustration that I talked about earlier in a previous video. Just if, for example, that's like a day when I need to come up with a concept for a new project or a new idea. And you know, Steve Allen said that just do it like you would be writing for a trash can. So I think that's really useful for drawing as well. I'm trying to just think on paper, start, and just not be, you know, fancy about my sketchbook and paper, just see what kind of pops up in my head and on the paper. I just try to like translate everything I can from my head onto paper and not think about whether that's like legit, whether that's like a final thing, because it's just so much easier when you see what's in your head, like visually on a paper, and then you can make up your mind about that. I used to like be very precious about my process and just kind of try to make everything up in my head and then draw it. But I think that's just so much more difficult for my practice. It's much easier if you just start with doodles and then gradually like make it more defined and into the final composition, like, you know, like the river people, the illustration, that my recent one, it all began like super simple, like super scribbly things, like crazy scribbly. Like, you see how bad these drawings are, but this is like my thoughts. It just helped me understand like what I want from my work, and like just kind of it helps me get inspired, just doodling it out. And it takes like 10, 20, 30 pages of just scribbles like that until I get an idea. I think that's just very helpful with the process, because it helps you see your idea visually right from the beginning and see what works and what doesn't, and helps you kind of crystallize into something more defined. So I'd say don't try to be precious about your drawings, about your sketches. Initially, just try to define it by drawing and try to decide on the idea by actually like scribbling it down, because nobody's gonna see it probably anyway. The next thing to help you be like inspired and help you grow, just try and like treat yourself to small things like a new pencil or like a new pen or fine liner or sketchbook, because I think that just boosts your creativity. It kind of when you buy something new, you just want to try, so it's just going to be like very intuitive that you're going to begin to draw, just want to try the paper, and that might just help you kickstart your creative process. Although like sometimes, you know, people buy some really lovely sketchbooks, which happens to myself as well, and we just feel like too precious about them, and we don't want to just screw them up with our bad drawings. Like the first page is the sacred one, it has to be a nice drawing, so try to be balanced with it. And then I think for like this kind of creative impulse, try to get yourself challenged, both like visually and mentally, and just look at things that you don't normally look for like inspiration. For example, like if I'm an illustrator, I might look at like other illustrators for inspiration, but that's not always a good thing, because as I mentioned earlier, you can get really overwhelmed by their beautiful work that is finished, and you can feel like, oh, you're not good enough and stuff. So just try to look for like some things that are like out of your field. Like if you're an illustrator, look at like product design or interior design, and just, I don't know, wildlife photography. Just look at films and political discussions and things that you don't normally look at, because they often, especially if these are like some new ideas for you, some new, I don't know, philosophies and stuff, that can just kind of trigger your imagination with like new questions, new concepts and things. Because I think, yeah, just getting out of your comfort zone is really helpful. And sometimes when I don't know what to draw like at all, I look for history, documentaries, interviews with famous people as well, in science and stuff. I try to look for inspiration where it's not obvious. and sometimes I just look at like people's portraits, because I think people just are very easy to apply a narrative on, in terms of and you see a face and you're thinking like, oh, what this person is like. Human face and human body is just, I guess, just this has like endless possibility for like inspiration, for narrative, and for imagery. So, but generally, yeah, just try be a balance with Pinterest and not get overwhelmed by beautiful work of other people that is finished and, you know, polished, done and dusted, because they all went through this very nasty process of just scribbles on a paper. It's important to give yourself breaks throughout the day as well, which I'm struggling with, and I'm trying to just ignore the fact that I need to eat and I need to go out, I need to walk Tesla, I need to, you know, do these like household little chores throughout the day that are important, but I just exclude them out of my schedule, and then the mess breaks loose because they still need done, but I never included them, and then like other things fall apart because I have to do these chores now instead of what I was planning with my illustration work. So make sure you look at your schedule kind of critically enough and practically enough, and see if you need to go out somewhere and see someone, just kind of include that in your schedule rather than, you know, over cram it with like illustration, like creative activities, because these things happen to me pretty much all the time, more or less. So I think an hour or two falls off throughout my day. But that's the tips from me, and I hope you find it helpful. Let me know what you think about it, because I'm not a guru, I'm not experienced in this, but I'm trying to bring some value back to you who are watching. So I'm trying to come up with what I feel is the right thing to do and what works for me in terms of creative process. And let me know what you think. This was my first attempt, and I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.